Hello, campers, and welcome back to our Thursday Night Live. And I'm pretty pumped tonight because Karen Chaston and I are sitting here talking about feeling lost, and it's an opportunity that she's bringing to the corporate world, which is something that I think is extremely important. But before we dive into that completely, quick, hi Karen, how are you tonight?
Good, thank you, Scott. As always, we're always pretty positive, aren't we?
Absolutely, we are, and that's what I actually love spending time talking to you because you do bring a beautiful energy, and I always feel better when we finish. Like, and I love that. But
Oh, good. Thank you.
yeah, you're an amazing human. So this is
That's
going to be
what
beautiful.
Maya Angelou says, isn't it? People remember
Sorry?
how you made them feel, not what you said. So thank you.
No, well, that's I actually honour that, and it's something that's really important to me on how I lead people, so that I concentrate on making sure that I make them feel that little bit better than what they did before, and I appreciate you doing that for me. But just before we kick off tonight, I do have a bit of a get well soon. Tonight's panel, we were going to take an opportunity to bring Angela Heiser in, but unfortunately Angela's down with COVID. So, mate, I'm sending you some love and congratulations on getting it. There's no reason why you should be special. I appreciate that. So, anyway, let's get into tonight's conversation. And rather than me introduce it and get elements wrong, Karen, I'd like for you to share with us exactly what your project's about, because it's exciting that people are starting to listen.
Okay, well, thank you. So where do I begin? Are you aware that there are over 40 different loss events that can affect our lives? This means that each and every one of us are going to have multiple major losses throughout our lives. It could be a death of a loved one, a divorce, separation, job loss, redundancy, your health, your wealth, your pets. Though over the last couple of years, during the pandemic, a lot of the minor ones have come to the forefront. Loss of freedom, choice, status, identity, changing work conditions, recreational and social activities. So what I do is I help people to move beyond any kind of loss and create their better everyday life. Because the more I deep dived into loss, the more it became quite apparent that in the West, we don't do loss very well. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't know what to do when loss comes to visit us or our friends or our family. And we certainly, most of the time, don't know what to say, which can put us into avoidance, suffering in silence, affecting all areas of our life, especially our relationships, and of course, our professional life. So as a former CFO of a publicly listed company, I left my corporate life after a couple of tragic events, the passing of my son in 2011, and then me choosing redundancy in 2012, when my company was merging with another. And that's when I became a life coach. And the more that I deep dived into that, the more I deep dived into loss, because I found that with my tragic loss events, I just did the old cliches, keep busy, give it time, everything will be all right. And of course it didn't. And using my sort of accounting brain, where I was always got to find that better way, that's when I really started looking for that better way. And I'm really passionate about businesses and leaders to understand that when you understand loss, you understand your people, because you're going to have multiple employees going through some sort of loss all the time. Not the same person, hopefully, but there is always going to be, whether it's a really tragic, loss of a loved one or a divorce, or whether it's one of the minor ones, it still is affecting their life. So it's affecting their sleep. They're probably gone into avoidance and using all of those really bad habits just to get through the day, which is going to affect their work, which is going to affect your sick leave, your absenteeism, your presenteeism, no matter what. So the more you understand it and the more that you can assist your people through it. And it's not a couch session, so don't freak about that. but it's an understanding, because we really do all have a lack of loss intelligence, which, put simply, we don't know what to do when loss comes to visit. Does that explain it?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And it's actually, like, I'm sitting here smiling, we're talking about loss, but I'm smiling because it's a conversation we need to have in the workplace. It's a conversation we need to talk about a lot more, but also appreciate what others are going through, because you're right. In the West, we don't do it as well as what the East does it. They embrace it. And one of the greatest movies that I've ever seen is a cartoon called Coco, and how they honor the Day of the Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead, and how they honor the dead by having, that's why they paint the skulls and they present their loved ones with food. And if they live in your heart, then they never die.
Yeah.
But in order sorry.
And it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that whole conversation within the workplace, it actually brings people together. And one of the greatest conversations I've actually had in the Campfire project was on death, with a mortician, a death doula, and a funeral director, where we spoke about all things death. To be involved in the process helped with the grieving and brought people closer together. So I can imagine what it would be like in the workplace, because these days, some crazy amount, 87% of people are disengaged with their work at the moment, and it's getting worse. Yes. So purpose and support is big things. So what are you finding? What are you finding?
So what I'm finding is that most people don't know what to say. Like, when my son passed away in 2011, he passed away on a Sunday. We found him literally dead at our back door Sunday morning when my husband and I woke up. And on the Tuesday, I said, I knew I'd be off for that week. And then on the Tuesday, I said, well, I'm just going to go to work just to tidy up a few things, because I'm not going to be there this week. But in my mind, I wanted to go to work so everyone could just say whatever they were going to say and then never say it again, which is totally ridiculous. But that was in my way of thinking. It was like, I just want everyone just to say, I'm sorry for your loss, or, it's really sad that Dan passed, or something, and then cut it off, never say it again. That was in my mind, right? And of course, everyone did say that. But the funny thing about it is that people don't know what to say. And they use those old cliches. And I have to say, before Dan passed, I would say, I'm sorry for your loss. I will never say that to anyone ever again. And if you watch any sort of cop show, someone will more than likely pass, and they will just go into the home to talk to their loved ones. And the first thing they say is, I'm sorry for your loss. But they say it in such a way that it's just like it's rhetoric. It's, you know what I mean? It has no meaning. It has no feeling behind it. It's certainly not heart-centered. It's just like, I've ticked the box. And that's what I've found, is people don't know what to say. And I can tell you right now what to say, right? And it works for any sort of loss. You can literally walk up to the person and you can say, I don't know what to say. I have no idea what you're going through. I've never experienced anything like this, but I'd like to be here for you. And then from there, they will say whatever they'll say. Don't ask them how you can be there for them. I used to tell people to do that, but then I started to realize that's putting more pressure onto them. That's another decision that they've got to make, and they don't want to be making decisions at that time. And certainly, down the track, you can ask those sort of questions, or, let's take away. And the best thing you can do for people is give them, the basics, some food, some, just a cuddle, whatever. But it's about understanding what you're saying. And sometimes the old cliches don't work at all. People will say, oh, only the good die young, or, you're lucky you got this. And I literally, at Dan's funeral, had someone say to me, you're lucky you have 2 other sons. And you're like, what the hell? Do you realize what you just said? And, sure, yeah, I do have 2 other sons. And sure, yeah. But seriously, my son has just passed. But it's people not thinking. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting it into the workplace, because people don't know what to say, right? And, it doesn't matter what sort of loss it is, whether it's, as I said, a loved one passing or a divorce, a job loss, all those they're the 3 main ones that you will find are occurring all of the time. And when people, like I can remember a girlfriend ringing me and telling me that she was separating from her husband. And I said to her, oh my God, how sad. I always thought you two would go the distance. And she said, oh, wow. And I said, what do you mean? She says, you're the first person that hasn't said to me, well, he was always, batting against average and, you're better off without him and stuff like that. And I said, well, why would I say that? I said, I really like him and I used to have some fun times with you. So why would I say that? Because does that just cancel out, that 10 years of this relationship that you had and stuff like that? So people don't think. They think they're comforting the person, but they're actually comforting themselves by just saying or blurting out whatever they've maybe have been thinking for years and years and years. So that's why this lack of loss intelligence is really important, because, it's about you having awareness. Am I saying this for me to tick a box, or for me to have comfort, or is it something I've always wanted to say? If I put myself in that other person's shoes, and it's not always easy to do that if you've never had a similar experience, but if I put myself in that other person's shoes, would they really want to hear that my husband of 10, 20 years was always batting above average? It's like, seriously? I chose him as my husband. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
And I love that, because when you downgrade that person, you're actually devaluing what they had, because just because things doesn't work doesn't mean that people are no good to one another. They at some point in the relationship, they were fantastic. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been in that relationship. So to be grateful for that is a whole different perspective, because
I have to say, they actually had I think they had a 6-month separation, and they're now back together and been back together for years. But that's the thing, you know what I mean? It's like honoring where they're at this time and asking those questions. Do you want to talk about what's gone wrong? You know what I mean? But, I am a great believer in be careful of the advice you get. I think it was Michael Caine who said, free advice isn't worth the paper it's written on. And I think sometimes you may be right, because you have all of these people with an opinion, and it's like, is their opinion valid? It's just an opinion at the end of the day. Is it fact? Probably not. So you do need to be careful at where you are going. And, a lot of people, when they're in loss, they love to be in that blame game. Let's use a divorce. It's probably the easiest one. So a lot of people they're getting to that blame game, and they really do start to, it's all the other person's fault. I was perfect. It was all them. They did this and said this and did all this and yada, yada, yada. And what they're forgetting is that there's 2 people in every relationship. And there is 2 people that throughout whatever the relationship's length has been, have said and done things that at times were not ideal. And it's about understanding that there is always something in every relationship that each individual would like to apologize for, would like to forgive, and would like to acknowledge. So the more that you understand that, the more you can go, yes. So, it's not about the person who's in the blame game. It's not about you actually saying, well, how about this and all that sort of stuff. But I like to break down words, right? I know I'm an accountant, but I really have got into my words, these English words. And I do still love my numbers. But I have to say that blame is a word that I really love to break down. And most people go, how can you break down blame, Karen? I'm like, seriously? And I go, no, listen. So there's blah, and then there's me. BLAME. So when you're in the blah, 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 blah of whatever you're blaming, you have forgotten about me. So you're not taking responsibility. You're not recognizing the fact that you were actually part of that relationship. It's just so much easier to go blah, 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 blah. And next time you listen to someone who you know is in blame, you can go, wow, there is nothing about them. And you just listen to the stuff that they keep reiterating, and you just sort of go, yeah, but where were you in all of this? And they're like, what do you mean? You know, well, your ex did all da 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 da. What were you doing? Like, you know, sort of thing. And then when they start to stop and when they start to deep dive into me, like themselves, that's when they start to get the true answers. And, you know, they always say, you know, there's your version and there's their version and then there's the truth. And when you do that deep dive into yourself, that's where you're getting yourself closer to the truth of everything that happened. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. And so the word blame for me has taken on a whole new opportunity.
Hasn't
I
it?
love that. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Me.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Me.
Yeah.
Where's your responsibility? It's one of the things that I love talking about. If I ever get the opportunity to work with people who are divorcing, I always focus on chunking it up, right? Chunk it up. What's the priority? What do we need to do? Kids, got kids involved, we chunk it up. So I don't actually care about you two. I actually care about the kids, because that's what we're here for. That's what we're going to go for. So you two have got your own stuff, but the kids, they're your responsibility. So we need to chunk it up, go for the kids. So no more blah, 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 blah. It's about me and what you can take responsibility for, right? So hearing that, blame, blah, 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 me, oh, geez, that's got some power.
I know. And it just, I don't even know where that came from. Well, I do. It would have come from my son on the other side. But seriously, when I first went, I went, oh my God, you know, because there's so many words that you can break down, and you just sort of go, this is totally amazing. Like lessons, right? So this was years ago. I was talking about someone that everything that happens in your life, there's a lesson, right?
Yes.
And it's about you finding that lesson, which I call a gift. When you find it, there is always a gift when you find that lesson. And sure, you may have to go through, you know, some traumatic times and emotional healing and releasing and all those sort of things to get to that lesson. But the sooner you find the lesson, the less on you.
Oh, bang!
Exactly.
The less on you.
Yeah, but see, people are not looking for that lesson. They're looking for the blame. So they've forgotten about me, and the lesson will always be something like, okay, what can I learn from that? How can I grow? How can I decide, you know, what I'm going to leave behind? What am I going to bring with me? And what am I going to start doing and stop doing, and all that sort of thing. That's where the lesson is, because if we continue to live exactly the same life after whatever's happened, there's something wrong, because, you know, there's after a really tragic event, it's like a pivotal moment saying, right, this is a line in the sand, right? That you're not going to go back to normal. I don't even know what normal is, because, you know, your normal is different to my normal. So you're not going to go back to who you were before whatever has happened. But you can now become that person who you came here to be. So that's where those lessons are. It's like, what am I going to learn? You know, when I left my corporate life, I looked at myself and I went, I don't even like who you are. You know, I was always angry. I know. See, always angry. I was a lot heavier. I knew everything. No one could tell me anything, which is total BS. But it was that environment that had made me like that. It was a real dog eat dog environment, and I was always watching my back, and and I knew it. And on the circumstances where I left was, I chose redundancy when my company was merging with another, and I knew that they were not doing the right thing by me. But in their mind, they offered me the job, like they said, come with us on doing exactly you're doing now, not a CFO, but doing everything you're doing now plus more. And then the contract was for 2/3 of what I was currently on at that time. And I was angry for about 2 days. And then after that, I went, oh my God, like, look at who you are. Like, you are unhealthy mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You think you're loving your job. You think you're loving your salary, but what are you doing with the money? You're wasting most of it to get through the day. So all of these things became to me, and it was a real eye-opener. And I literally looked in the mirror and I went, I don't like who you are. And it's time for you to become who you can look in the mirror and do the old, the old Fonzie salute, hey, sort of thing. And that's what you can, and that's what I do, because it is about that deep dive into me and that finding me and finding that person. And that's why loss comes to you, because it's, you can't continually be in love, because let's face it, if you're continually in that love line, life gets a bit boring and a bit monotonous, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. And like, there's lots of things I want to grab here, but
okay, I'll stop talking.
No, keep talking. But it's more about, like, I love this, right? Because I believe a problem's not the problem, right? You have pain, the lesson, and the opportunity. It's 3 different growth areas you need to go through, and if you get through all 3, that's where the true green grass is, right? Because pain's never, whatever problem you got, you get the pain. If you actually can sit there and process the pain, then you then take the lessons. What is hurting? What is it? Then you find the lessons. Once you've found the lessons, that creates the opportunity to grow. And that's the things that I adore. Hey, Caroline, thank you so much.
Hi, Caroline.
Gorgeous human being over there. Hey, listen, I hope you're resting up well, mate. I'm thinking of you.
In her summertime?
It is her summertime. But it's like this whole beyond loss scenario, like it takes time, right? It really does, and it's the thing I really wanted to grab out of that was the mirror. Like, I started doing a lot of personal development about 6-7 years ago, and that really opened up not only my heart, but the opportunities in life for me. And I now can no longer listen to Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, like I used to. I look at that and I feel him standing in front of the mirror, and that's the hardest place we can be. However, it is the most amazing place to stand as you progress.
Totally. And I have this little ritual, Scott, and it's actually a really good ritual. I've been doing it for a while now. I think I started it 2013, 2014, so 8 years. And I don't do it every day now like I used to, but I do it 3-4 times a week. And I stand in front of a mirror and I put on a love song, and I play that love song while I'm looking into one eye, right? So I'm singing this love song to myself, okay? I'm probably not physically singing. I'm letting the singer sing. But the words are coming in and they're most amazing. And one of the best songs that I have found is Jason Mraz's I Won't Give Up. Now, if you've never heard it, I highly recommend someone get it. And it starts off with, as I look into your eyes. That's the first line of the thing. And it even goes on into say further down, how deep is your soul? It is the most amazing song to sing to yourself. And you will cry. Like, even now, I've been doing it for years, and occasionally I will cry. And it really does. And it's all about, I won't give up on you. And it's really knowing how important you are in your life. And most people forget that. They forget that they're the only person they're going to spend 24/7 with. They forget that they're the only person that, have come into this life and is going to live this life and then pass and go on to the next adventure. And they default their life to looking after everyone else and letting everyone else achieve their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Meanwhile, while they sit back getting, angry and regretful and all those sort of things. So it is about you understanding that you are really important in your life, that you matter. And that's what I love about loss, because loss gets your emotions into a place where you can do that deep dive into yourself. And, you don't have to wait for loss to do it, but it sort of triggers you to say, my life is changing. So what does that mean for me now? And what does it mean for me moving forward? Especially on the three major ones, which is the death of a loved one, a marriage or separation or divorce, and then, of course, your job loss. So your life is going to change, but it doesn't mean it's going to change for the worse. It could be for the better, but that's where it comes up to you. I can remember years ago, I worked at Dreamworld for a long time. I was there for like 13, 14 years. And we had this most amazing guy. He wasn't my boss, but he was one of the executive teams, and everyone loved him. And he was made redundant in the early 90s, and he never got another job, not to that caliber. And he whittled away, and he ended up dying from cancer. And it was really like watching him pass. It was before I even got into deep dive into loss and understand loss, but it's always stuck with my mind. He believed that he would never get another job, so he never did. And it's about understanding the way we think, the way we talk, all these sort of things. It's really important for us to really deep dive into our beliefs. And that's one of the things that I do in my Beyond Loss programs. I deep dive into the cliches. I deep dive into your beliefs, and to figure out, are the beliefs that you have even your beliefs? And as we know, more than likely they're not. They're your parents and grandparents and teachers and everyone else's that we've just sort of taken on and accepted. And the more we deep dive into that, and then we deep dive into our avoidance tactics, because that's what stops us from thriving. Is something happens in our life, we go into survival, and we can stay stuck there because we have created a world of avoidance tactics. Things like food, alcohol, drugs, working too much, exercising too much, isolation, anger. Anger is the most interesting avoidance tactics of them all. And I've got someone around me at the moment, their default is anger. So if you say something to them to try and help them, they'll go to anger. And they'll go to anger quite loud, which pushes you back. And then you get defensive, and we end up being defensive, which goes nowhere. But they've avoided having that conversation. And it's really, really interesting when you start to watch it, and then you go, oh, wait a minute, right. So then when you bring it up next time, you don't go to anger. You stay calm, and then it's like, oh, and they're not as happy because they're like, oh, my God, I'm not going to get them to stop talking through my anger. So anger is a really interesting one when you look at the people who will go, and it is avoidance tactics. They just don't want to have that conversation. And another one is, of course, our social media, our Netflix. And one of the most favorite ones, of course, is shopping. And we even call it retail therapy. I know.
Yeah. I'll let you dive into that.
Exactly. It's like, sort of thing. So it is interesting the more you get into loss. And that's why I'm really passionate about the workplace, learning about it, understanding it, releasing this lack of loss intelligence, because when people know how to move beyond loss, right, they have a process. It's just like, oh, well, I can be resilient. Okay, I know what to do. And I know that, sure, it will be a little bit painful, and I will deep dive into those emotions, and I will figure out what that emotion is trying to guide me towards, healing or forgiving or all those sort of things. But once you get those answers, which you can quite easily get once you know the process, then you can go, right, now it's all about creating that better life.
Yeah, look, I love that because I'm just picturing at the moment a workplace where there's someone whose partner's lost a job.
Yep.
Okay, they've lost their job, but they're let's say the husband's lost his job and the wife's working at this company,
Yep.
and they're not getting the support they need for this. She is then carrying that energy at her workplace, which
Exactly.
then creates that negative energy in the workplace for everybody. So it's the loss doesn't just count for the one person; it counts for everybody that they're involved with.
It does.
That's one of the reasons why this is so important, because we're only in the last sort of 5-10 years that I've learned the importance of the impact that emotional situations have beyond that initial person. Somebody's angry, somebody's avoiding things, and they're using their anger as their tool. Then we miss out on significant growth because nobody wants to deal with that person.
That's right. And there's a really good book out at the moment, which was it's written by Dr. Brian Perry and Oprah. And it's a conversation, and it's called What Happened to You? And the whole conversation is around people changing the, I guess, the rhetoric of what's wrong with you to what's happened to you. What's happened in your life for you to be who you are today? Isn't that an incredible thing?
I just adore that, right? Because every single person's got a story. One of the things that I love more than anything is to listen to anybody's story, because I will grow from that. So to understand what's happened
what
to
happened to you? Yeah,
what happened.
And people don't ask that question. They just assume and go, "Oh, so and so, he's weird, or he's an idiot, or oh, don't even bother with him, or her, or whatever." As opposed to, why are they like that? Like, who we are today is a sum of our past experiences. So there must have been something that happened to make them like that. What is happening to you now? As you said, the lady rocks up to work. Everyone thinks, well, everything's fine, not realizing the husband's lost the job. She's not sleeping very well. They're fighting because he can't get another job. The money's going down. She feels like she's doing all the work. He's depressed. She comes home. The house is a mess. And it just goes on and on and on. But from the boss's point of view, what's wrong with you? You're not as efficient as you were last week.
Understand.
But no understanding. No, how can we help you? Or can we help you? What did your husband do? How can we help him find a job in, whatever scenario, and things like that? Because it's important for people to understand that when this person is supported and looked after, not only does the workplace all sort of compound and become good, but the other way as well.
100%. And it's like it's everybody impacts other people with their situations. And that's why it's so important to support, and especially at the moment. Like, I talk about COVID and loss of friendships, loss of opportunities. That there's significant stuff going on in the workplace. Janelle, thank you for that. I love that. What's wrong with you? Very negative to start a conversation. What has happened to you? Such an amazing thing. The power of our words. And that's exactly right. The power of our words, right, used in the right context, change things. But I'm just going to throw a little disclaimer up about now, because I I think as the human existence, the human existence as it is right now is actually probably the best opportunity we've ever had to become more human, because we're challenging these opportunities and understanding emotions. In a couple of weeks' time, I start an opportunity that is unheard of. And I'm so grateful because we're having conversations like beyond loss in the workplace. I'm having conversation with tradesmen around Australia talking about life, talking about how things are going at home, talking about what's going on business-wise, talking about the successes together. And that group is growing exponentially. And the human experience, when we can sit and understand and listen and learn and share the amazing things that happen, and also the painful situations where we just sit to understand, then we're stronger. We are so much stronger. And inside a company, one of the things I talk about with the guys is, how do you hang up your day? How do you hang up your day for your loved ones? What do you mean? Well, get home, take your jacket off, hang it on a tree before you go inside. You don't have to actually be wearing a jacket. Just take it off and hang it up. So you leave it at the door, and then you walk in, and as you leave, put it back on.
Yeah.
So that work, home, because we go to work for the people we love, right? Now, the energy that is created from situations beyond loss, right, is really heavy. And the impact that it just has on everybody is huge. So and it's not that one person. I know I've said that a couple of times, but I'm just going to reiterate that because I'm so excited, Karen, about having the opportunity to talk about the workplace on a corporate level of emotional support, because it supports everybody.
Well, everyone has loss. Like no one is going to get out of this life without having some sort of loss. And sure, some people will have more than others. But then, that's what they have chosen for their spiritual growth this lifetime. But what's always very, very important to understand is our lack of loss intelligence is what makes moving through loss so much harder, because we don't understand. So if I'm going through something, my friends and my family may not understand it because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They come to a stage and a lot of people have a time frame in their mind. You should be over this within 2 weeks or 2 years or whatever it is in their mind. And if you're not over it in that time, that's when they start with the, oh, aren't you over that yet? Like, surely you can't you move on? Like, what's wrong with you? I want the old person back who used to come out partying and be fun and all that sort of stuff. So it's about understanding that everyone has a different time frame, and you don't know what regrets they may have. You don't know what is causing their pain and their sadness and all those sort of things. That's why the process, a part of the process that I go through, it is about them finding out, what is it you'd like to apologize for? What is it that you'd like to forgive? And forgiveness is not condoning. So people need to understand that, because most people go, I'll never forgive this. And it's like, well, you forgive for yourself. And then, of course, what do you want to acknowledge? Because, you think about, the scenario we used of the divorce. And I love that you said it's about, it's about the kids. It's about, let's have an amicable relationship. And whenever I deal with someone who, is going through a divorce and has children, I've been to many weddings as friends of the parents of the bride or the groom who have been separated. And I know the angst that the bride and groom have gone through because their parents are in the same room. And you think, you were divorced like 30 years ago and you still can't be in the same room as your ex? Like, how sad is that? Especially when it's your child that is getting married. It's just, it's horrible. And it doesn't need to be that way. If we and we go through it and get out of the blame game and all those sort of things, you can come to a place. I'm not saying you have to go away on holidays together and do all those sort of things, but some exes do, which is quite nice with their new partners and whatnot. So that's the thing that, I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, look, I love that because it is a really big thing. And again, it comes back to the pressure that a situation that hasn't been dealt with as a divorce, they haven't worked on the emotional state of themselves, then gets dumped on every other person.
Yeah.
And just
everyone gets uncomfortable. Everyone doesn't want to be there.
100%. And it's interesting because I'll just talk about what personal experience for me. The relationship with my father has been a difficult one, which we're working really hard on, and I'm really pleased to say it's making progress. I spoke to him today. We're actually talking to one another. He's a grandfather, but that pain that I carried, right, that unprocessed, unhealed pain, was dumped on everyone else around us. His unhealed pain. And it's not about me forgiving him for anything.
Yeah.
Once I understood how he grew up and I got curious about
what happened to you. See, what happened to you?
Correct. Yes. I went back to the me. So let me understand you so then I can understand. And it's not about forgiving, it's just about understanding. And one of the greatest things that I was sitting in the crowd for, I went and saw David Goggins when he came to Sydney, and I went and trained with him and spent some time. Now, David Goggins, world hardest man, was brutalised as a kid, and it's pretty horrific. Anyway, his story is great, and the lessons he's learned and he's gifted a lot of people are really good. They're some amazing things. But the one thing that I just grabbed with both hands was when he was talking to Dr. Jen Mann, and she was interviewing him, and he was talking about his father, and she says, "How do you feel about your father these days?" And he goes, "Well, I don't have to forgive him, but I understand him."
Yeah.
She says, "Explain that." I said, "Well, I actually went back to see him. Now, I've never heard him speak about this before. This is the first time I've heard him talk about this. This is a guy I followed a lot. And he talked about when he drove back to see his dad. His dad was going to pass away, and he just went back just to go and talk to him. And as he was driving back, he went back in age really quickly, back to that 8-year-old boy again. And then he's sitting there with his father as an 8-year-old boy. But he asked his dad about his life. And his dad shared how much he went through.
Yeah.
And he goes, after I sat and listened to that, I drove home and I got back to my age twice as quick as I went back to it as I was driving down. He goes, I didn't have to forgive him because I just understood.
Yeah.
And all of that energy.
The release.
Yeah, it's huge, and this goes back to me understanding things. It's just so important taking on that me because it's that energy.
Yeah,
and that's why it's so important in a workplace to get this sorted. You're there to focus.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and it is. It's about the programs. I call it the people and profits connection because your people and your profits are connected. And the first step is the you factor. So it's all about them learning about themselves, what we've been talking about. But the second one is the know, like, and trust. And it's not a marketing ploy. It's about you getting to know, like, and trust all of your colleagues, no matter where they are, whether the chairman of the board or the janitor, it doesn't really matter. And it's through those conversations that you get to understand that's why you're like that. That's why, I can't come and talk to you when you're really, really busy. But, if I set an appointment with you, you'll be fine. Things like that. I just thought, you're just being a pain, sort of thing. Because I don't mind it when people interrupt me. which I do though. But you know what I mean? So it's all that sort of stuff. But it is about getting to know them, because when you do get to know them, not only will you understand them, but together you can then create that third energy, right? Because you're a complete person, and that third energy comes around, which is your collaboration, your understanding of each other, the way that, how can we work together to make this better? And you think you multiply that out through everyone in the company, what will happen then? Like, what amazing ideas will come when you know that everyone has your back. You are willing to speak up. You're willing to say, there's an issue here, and this can be fixed by this. Whereas when you feel everyone's about to dive on you and bring you down, you're not so forthcoming with your ideas and things like that. Especially when you have, as we know at the moment, a lot of negative, people who are actively disengaged. They'll just purposely bring you down for the sake of just bringing you down because they're not happy where they are.
Correct, and that brings up another reason as to why it's so important to understand your employees and what they're going through. Because if you don't, hurt people.
Yeah,
and they do it to make themselves feel better. So they're actively looking for that fight and engagement.
Yeah,
and that's a dangerous place, isn't it? I personal beliefs right now. I think that's where we're at right now.
Yeah,
we're in pain, and it's like we just had an election, and I loved Oscar breaking down all the advertising. He goes, "It's absolutely horrible, Dad. It's so catchy, but it's just ripping each other apart."
Yeah,
100%, right? And so what are we going to get when we do that? We're not going to get into growth, and that for me is the more I experience life and the more I meet people, the more I believe that the opportunity, which is basically the human existence, has been fear and control, right? And it's stunted our growth.
Yeah.
Because when we got control, that's the way it is, and that's it. There's no opportunity for that third energy. When we choose love and support and understanding, no, actually, do you know what? I'm going to take responsibility to learn this situation. You know what? You've done a great job over here. Have you thought about adding this to it? All of a sudden, the third energy is there, and then we can grow into what we can be. And to be perfectly honest, I'm so excited about the opportunity of what we humans can be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
It's just, and it's simply by doing things like this, beyond loss, sitting there, learning about it, not putting you into somebody else's story, just understanding the me, sitting there. So I'm going to ask you, Karen, it's someone at work, they're just not right. You can tell they're just not right.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
What's going on? How can I help you? I wouldn't say it in.
Yeah. Well, you've just muted yourself, Karen, by accident. I'll unmute you. It's probably your liquid gold too, what you're saying right now. There we go.
I don't even know how I did that. I just went like that and I muted.
Oh, no, you had liquid gold coming out. That's why.
Thanks. So what I was saying is it's about asking the questions and probably having to ask them more than once, but it's not accusing. It's like, I've noticed that, there's something wrong at the moment. You don't seem your usual self. How can I help you? What's going on? And even if it's outside the workplace, just let us know. Or if it's in the workplace or is it outside? I'd like to know what's going on in your life. I'd like to know how I can help you. Would you like the afternoon off? Would you like this? And what I've found is the first step is to stop, right? Most people don't stop. As I said earlier, I went back to work the day after Dan's funeral. I just got really busy and I was in total avoidance because that's what they tell you to do. Keep busy, give it time, everything will be all right. And of course it's not. So these people who are, going through that grind and that there's something wrong with them, but everyone's just avoiding them because people don't want to ask, because then they might tell me and I don't know what to do. If they do tell me, what do I do then? And it's like I'm opening up this Pandora's box that I don't know what to do. That's why it's so important for us to know what to do, to know what to say, so that we can actually have that conversation of saying, how can I help you? Now, last week I had the pleasure of talking to some corporate clients and some big corporate ones. And they were literally saying that they have in their services to their employees, they can talk to a counsellor, they can talk to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or someone like that. But most of the people won't utilise those services because there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need a psychiatrist. I don't need to talk to a counsellor. I'm just going through life. And it's like, so there's this stigma around it, and there shouldn't be. But we've created that over the years. And that's why, it's about, but when you understand the basics of how to go through loss, and then you can go, oh, right. Well, I can say to them, no, we don't want you to go to a counsellor. Like you may want to down the track, but why don't you just have a look at this loss program, which you can do, online by yourself, or you can do it by yourself and then you can talk to someone as well after it. It removes that stigma. And that's what they liked about it, is the fact that they could see it as another service that their employees might actually utilize, because it's an online program. It's, you know what I mean? And you'll get to educate yourself and you'll get to be able to move through stuff. But also, when you move through your stuff, you learn how to assist other people. Because that's what it's about at the end of the day, is, you will know what to say and you will know how to move forward. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sitting here smiling, and I would love workplaces to employ emotional fitness people, and
they're starting to, Scott. They're starting.
I really feel they are, because
it's basic.
But I would actually like. It's just me, but less psychiatry. Go to a psychiatrist, as in, you know what? I've noticed Karen's down a bit at the minute.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm just going to get Scott to go and say good day to her.
Yeah.
And actually stop, right? Because quite often it's not just the person stopping, you stopping to pay attention to somebody, to say, I see you. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, I'm not quite sure what's going on at the minute. I just want you to know I'm here.
Yeah.
Anything.
It makes
just let me know.
Yeah. And then when that person has gone through this tragedy, what will they do then? Like, how much more will they show up for you? Oh, you respected me. You cared about me. You actually showed a bit of love for what I was going through. Right. Yep. I'm going to return that back to you tenfold. And that's what people do. And it's always about understanding that people love to help other people. And the more that we can, the more that we will. But we all are going to go through, ups and downs time. It's like our heartbeat. Our heartbeat goes up and down. And if it's one straight line, what does that mean? Exactly. And so it's whether it's emotionally dead or physically dead, that's what it is. That's why we have those ups and downs, so that we can really appreciate the times when we're on the up.
So I'm gonna grab that for a minute, because there's something that I think needs to be discussed, and it's something that it's very much at the forefront of my thinking in pretty much every situation.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about in society about return on investment.
Yep.
what's your return on emotion? What are you putting out that you get back?
Oh, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So if your workplace is crap, you take that home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You carry it. You gift it to the people you love. You go to work because of the people you love, because you want to do things better for them, and like you want to build a better opportunity for those that you love. Is that opportunity just financial, or what's your return on emotion?
Yeah.
So I challenge people to think about that. I challenge people to think about what is the return on the emotions that they're putting out. What are they getting back because they're either dumping or they're giving the love? Which one is it? Fear, love, pain, wins. And something for me that's I just want to sort of grab quickly is the fact that we've discussed how to open up a conversation, right? How to sit there and be there. What do you do if somebody actually responds, right? And they actually give you what's going on in their life?
Listen to understand, not to respond, because more than likely they don't want you to respond. They just want to get it out, right? And then when they stop talking, is there anything else you'd like to share? And then they'll go again, and then keep asking, is there anything else? And then when they eventually say no, then say, would you like me to assist you with what's going on in your life? And they will tell you yes, no, how can you? You know what I mean? And they know, right? But a lot of the time is they just don't have an outlet for it. And the workplace in a lot of people's mind is, I can't be vulnerable here. If I show that little chink in my armor, I'm going down, right? And that's why it's so important for people to be able to be vulnerable, because it's actually where your strength is in your vulnerability, because we're all human and we all have emotions and we all go through all these sort of things. And what I really loved about what you just said about your emotional return on investment, we all reflect each other. So if you've got a lot of people in your life who are angry, who are doing all of these sort of things, it's about you going, is that what I'm putting out? And asking yourself, why all of a sudden have I got all these, why am I having all these fights? Or why am I having all of these people just not showing up? What is it that I'm putting out that this is reflecting back? Or are they just reflecting my shadow side? And I'm like, oh, no. So how can I help them to reflect their other side? So, it's important to understand that we all reflect each other. Back to the blame game. We're too busy blaming everyone else to actually go, what about me? Where's my responsibility in this?
I think responsibility is a whole other topic that we could open up at some point, because that's the key to this, right? Taking responsibility for bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So, and I'd actually
Janelle's really good what she's been writing. Thanks, Janelle.
Yeah,
comments. And I'm glad that your parents took a stand, a pack when they separated, divorced, to make sure that the kids came first. And it's such a responsible thing to do, isn't it?
It really is. It's chunking it up. It's literally doing the right thing, because kids didn't choose. They're here. They are your responsibility. Give them the love that they deserve, right? And then watch us all grow.
Yeah.
So instead of blah 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 me, let's watch everybody grow.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I'm just going to throw my two bobs worth in, because one of the things for me that when we sit with people and we don't know, people actually express what's going on, they do become vulnerable. I think one of the greatest things you can do is just say thank you for sharing that, and leave it. Don't have to respond beyond that.
No.
Thank you for sharing that, and then let them come back to you. If they want to talk more, they're going to open it up. because you've just appreciated them being vulnerable and you haven't had to put any part of you on that.
Exactly. And, that's why it's so important to listen. And it's not easy to sit there and listen and not give your opinion. But remember, it's your opinion. You haven't walked in their shoes. You don't know what they've been going through. You don't know what got them to be who they are today. So it's about listening and understanding. And then when they're finished talking, how can I help you? Would you like a day off? Would you like this? Would you like that? Whatever it is, because it is sometimes like they're probably like, I'm just exhausted. I'd like to go and sleep for a day. It's like, well, just go do it, because you heal through sleep. The best way to heal is to sleep. And a lot of people, when they're going through stuff, are not sleeping. So they're sort of, compounding it because they're not having that time to heal and rest and restore.
I love this. I love the concept. I love the discussion, and we've already been speaking for an hour, and I feel we've only just scratched the surface. But and this is what I adore about this. This is what I adore about the Campfire project, because we're opening up conversations and just learning from one another. Like tonight's been amazing. Like blah 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 me, blame. Less on me. Listen. I've got less on me. I'm not carrying as much around with me. I can't wait to see what you come up with for opportunity. I'm going to leave that with you, Karen.
Oh, opportunity. Okay. How about disease?
Disease. That one.
No. We're meant to live our life in ease.
100%.
And if we don't, we will create dis-ease in our body.
I'm a big believer in that one myself.
Totally.
So I'm going to
opportunity. I have to write that one down. Not sure.
That's all right. Well, I want to finish up tonight with a little bit of gold for everybody. A little bit of gold, and just feeling into what gold we can leave everybody with, because it's. What would you like to leave everyone with tonight, actually, Karen? What would you like to leave everyone with?
I think I've already said the goal that I normally like to say, but it's really important that everyone understands that they're the only person they're going to spend their entire life with. People come and they go, and they're on their journey, and it's really important and this understanding makes you closer to people. You think it would make you an individual and you'd push people away. But what I've found is that it actually brings you closer, because you realize that your relationships are important. Because that, at the end of the day, is what I believe this journey is all about. It's about building the relationships, and through experience that we learn and we grow, and we have some people in our life who present a lot of challenges to us, but it's understanding that those challenges are assisting us to become that person who we came here to be. So it's about understanding that and knowing that we are all going to go on. We're all going to leave this earth at some stage. None of us have an expiry date on our birth certificate. So it's about understanding that when we do go on to our next adventure, that we have very little regrets. Whether it's about achieving those hopes, dreams, and aspirations, or whether it's about people. It's about knowing that, you did the best thing you could, and sure, you parted company for whatever reason, but you still had that love to start with for each other. And what popped in my head when I was telling you this, it was really funny, is when we spoke earlier, we spoke about how in the West we don't do death very well. There's a little country called Bhutan, I think is how you pronounce it. and it's in between India and China and Tibet. And from a very early age, they meditate on their death. Now, it sounds really morbid, doesn't it, for people in the West? But when you think about it, if you're meditating on your death, right, you're not scared of it. So that makes them live their life. They live in the present, and they're actually classed as the happiest people in the world. Now, it sounds really morbid, but when you deep dive into that and you sort of think, okay, so if I take death out of the equation, sure, it's going to happen, and it doesn't really matter how it's going to happen, and I've already decided how it's going to happen, so I can leave that over there and forget about that. But it's about living your life and being able to look in the mirror and actually say, hey, I really love you, and I love what you're doing, and I love who you are, and I love that you've got rid of all of those bad habits that you used to have. And I love the fact that you really, truly are here living and loving your life. No matter what comes your way, you look at it and you learn from it and you grow and you become that better person.
I love that. I don't fear death. I fear not living.
Yeah. And, you've only got one lifetime. And what I mean by that is one lifetime as you, looking like you, being you, having your life experiences. I believe that we come down many, many times, but we always come down as a different person, never as the same person. So there is no one else who can do what you're doing or be who you are. And I think it's time for us all to really love who we are, a genuine love, because I feel that the things that happen in the world are coming from people who are not really loving who they are. They think they have power, they think they have money and all these sort of things, and they do in their own mind, but they're not using those things to improve the world. They're doing things to control the world. And why? Why?
And that's a good.
You don't even have to answer that, because
No, bugger it, I'm gonna. No, bugger
we're
it.
all going to have so many different answers for that.
Yeah, but I truly believe that the leadership that's in its current place comes from pain and a fear of loss.
Mm-hmm.
And for what reason? I think it's because it's the way they've been educated, and only when they get to see a different way of life can they fully embrace that. Because life is just a one big experience based on lots of little experiences, right? And all of our solutions come from the experiences that we have. And so in order to create a new paradigm, we have to have new experiences outside of that. So I'm really looking forward to a different style of leadership where it is completely and utterly from love and understanding. And I think Simon Sinek's doing an amazing job. And I actually believe it's coming.
I really love it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe it's coming because we're choosing to learn each other, it's like just this conversation tonight, right? Like, so we tried to have it last week, COVID, and then this week, and it's like, no, do you know what? You and I need to do this. We need to sit and talk and learn each other, because the growth that you and I have had just sitting here, it's wonderful. Exactly. And it's taken over an hour to do that. And we need to take more time, stop. Yeah. Listen to one another, and this is a prime example of that, because I leave this conversation tonight thinking about things more, understanding, blame, blah, 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 me. Great opportunity. Less on me if I learn it, and it's a couple of bits of gold that you continually get when you have these conversations that make your life fulfilled, give you more return on emotion.
Mm.
They're stronger emotion, and that emotion doesn't just live in you; it lives in everybody you engage with. You know, like I live a blessed life, right? I walk around with that on my t-shirt. Every single person looks at that and smiles.
Yeah.
Like that's the rose-colored glasses that I live in.
Yeah.
And I like it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Karen, I want to honour you tonight. I really, really do. I
Thank
love
you.
what you're doing. I love what you bring to the table. I love your heart and the honesty you bring it with. Thank you for being you.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you for being you, and everyone who's been watching, especially Janelle for sharing her thoughts and everything with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
No. I love talking to you also, but I'm sure, Angela, get well soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. Love goes out to you, and we'll speak to you soon. Karen, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you to everyone who watches this. Janelle, thank you very much for your input tonight. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. All right, take care, campers. We'll be back next week. Next week, I'm a little bit behind at the moment. I've got a lot of things going on. I actually want to talk about divorce from a female's perspective. So if you know somebody that has done a one-on-one or you'd like to be a part of the conversation, sing out. We'll get a one-on-one done because we had it with the men the other day and it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed listening to the men and about the lessons and the opportunities that they've gone through. Came from a place of love and understanding. We talked tonight about loss and talked about divorce. We chunked it up. Men sat there and chunked it up, and it was beautiful to see. And there's a lot more of that I would love to see. So, yeah, get around it. But I'll send out some messages, or maybe Janelle. Take care, campers. Thanks for your time tonight. Thank you so much, Karen, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Where's that bloody button?